You may need there's a mic.
Thanks. There's a lot of emphasis on Metacritic scores. I know that a couple of companies in Australia have released some licensed titles that don't score too well on Metacritic, yet their sales are actually quite good. This usually comes down to critics and reviewers not needing any credentials or any experience with reviewing the game. And especially with licensed titles, they don't like the type of game that they've been asked to review. When did Metacritic become such a big thing to worry about?
When games started to cost $20 million to make, basically. I mean, honestly, it's not the, it's obviously not, it's very subjective, it's not the fairest, but it's what we have, and there are studies where there are correlations in certain genres. In the first-person shooter genre, for example, you need to do an 85 rated game if you want to have a chance to build a franchise. And our focus is on franchise building at Activision, so for anything to be a franchise and for anything to have sequel opportunities, we feel it has to be 80 or above. But you brought up the point, licensed products. At that point, maybe we don't need an 80 rated game for certain licenses, especially once you start getting into kids licenses and stuff like that. We certainly don't want 60 or 50 rated games, but perhaps a 75 rated game is fine, or even a 70 rated game. It's certainly not fair, but it's pretty much the only thing that we have to go on, and it's just a fact of life now that our senior management is very focused on quality scores right now.
Yeah, I mean, I worked, I took a game idea to THQ about 2 years ago to do Wii Sports for the rest of the world. To do cricket and frisbee and beach soccer and stuff like that, and that's what evolved into Big Beach Sports. That game cost $1.3 million to make, and it sold about 2 million copies worldwide. Most of those not in America. So, it really depends, and that's become a franchise now. And it's from very sort of humble beginnings, me wanting to make a beach volleyball game. So, I think franchises can come from very humble beginnings. And Big Beach Sports rated maybe 50% on Metacritic scale. So, it was a very focused title and a very sort of I had a very specific target about what I wanted to achieve on that game. We did. It sold well, and as a result, we have a new franchise.
You guys mentioned the game industry goes through these cycles where there's these large layoffs, and it's often a correlation between the console cycles. How far away do you think the new cycle is, and any inkling who's going to pull the trigger first?
Your guess is as good as mine. We're at least a couple years away from anything new on the Sony or Microsoft platforms.
Well, on the console.
On the console side, yeah, and they shouldn't come out. We need the install bases to go up. We need a lot of we need this to carry out for a little bit longer. So I'm hoping that they don't jump the gun.
Yeah, I think we might see a handheld cycle before we'll see a console cycle, and that will be interesting. That now that we're starting to get these cycles happening out of sync, I think that's an interesting opportunity.
And the funny thing is too, that the PC, the long insult to the PC, that is getting more popular again.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm looking to a spotlight here, which is one of the reasons I don't actually need to ask the question. Anyone else?
Would you say there are any opportunities that the Australian games industry could or otherwise should be taking advantage of?
Opportunities for what? For funding?
Just in the general sense, like the Australian industry is in a position to take advantage of. Like say, good with franchises, and yeah.
I think having a if you're gonna take a game to a publisher, having a franchise plan is pretty interesting. You know, normally I've never seen a developer come to us with these are the next 3 games or the next 2 games after this one that we're going to make in this franchise, and this is how we intend to build on the first one. You know, every single pitch meeting I've ever been in has just been focused on that one game. But in terms of what can Australian developers do differently, I don't think that there's any particular advantage to being in Australia anymore. When we were 60 cents to the dollar, yeah, we had an advantage then. But now you've got just as much chance as everybody else.
Yeah, I was just interested in the publishing take on XBLA and PSN.
Okay, well, at Activision, our portfolio strategy when it comes to Xbox Live and PSN is extremely focused and I would say limited in a lot of ways. We're only going to exploit our IP, our owned IP, in pretty much our biggest titles. So Call of Duty, Guitar Hero, you know, maybe Bond or Tony Hawk or things like that, but it will only be our owned IP or big licenses that we have. So in terms of original IP and smaller opportunities, which are great and you can make money off of those, it's just viewed as an opportunity cost at Activision, where we would rather take those resources and take that money, invest it back into the franchises that we already have and continue to grow those across different platforms. So ours is pretty simple and not very sexy, but it does the job for us.
Yeah, THQ is kind of the same opinion. You know, we view those in similar ways as we do the Facebook and the iPhone and you know, various other apps. It's another way to leverage our brands and get it in front of people that may not have seen it before. But you know, there's been some really sexy successes out there, like Explosion Man and like Trials and like Shadow Complex.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Shadow Complex may have changed the landscape a little bit. Just a really high quality game, very well done, and it's doing well. It's just tough, we can't get downloadable numbers, which make it a little bit difficult, but it's certainly forced us to look a little bit more as to what we can do on those platforms as games are able to get bigger. So Shadow Complex is something, if you guys haven't played it, it's something you guys should play. And I think maybe not at the bigger publishers there are those opportunities, but certainly at the smaller publishers and maybe even with movie studios, if you can get financing, there are opportunities to do some smaller scale games on these platforms.
I'm feeling some of Bob's kind of frustration because, you know, we work for these big lumbering companies, and you know, you can throw all these sort of ideas and you can show them stuff like Shadow Complex and they go, wow, that's so cool. And you know, can we do something like that? No, it's not really, I don't know, how would we sell it? You know, it's not a box thing. How do we, you know, so there's all these, you know, and we're in a situation where it's much easier to say no than it is to say yes. Even if you can say yes, it's a lot easier to say no. So.
Anyone else? Can this is EA with your EA.
So, EA question then. Digital distribution. JR recently shifted some strategies long term to support digital distribution of EA. So, what are you guys doing in that regard?
Really not too much. Again, you know, we focus on the Xbox Live and the Sony networks, but it's Call of Duty maps and it's things very specific to those IP and song packs and stuff like that. And Guitar Hero, in terms of anything very unique, where we're not really trendsetters in the space. I think personally, I'm looking for the day when we can start cutting out retail and make it a little bit easier to get to consumers and to do some different types of games through digital distribution. But for us right now, it's just viewed as almost more or less on the revenue side and more